It's the final round of the Omega Tournament, and it's going to be a Trinity versus Trinity slobberknocker. Will the new young up-and-comers bulldoze their opponents, or will the hometown team stand strong? Well, we'll find out as we dig into the pages of DC KO issue number 4. Meanwhile, over at Marvel, it's a new fresh start for the Merc with the Mouth Deadpool. What'll happen next? Well, join me as we dig into 2 of the most exciting books on the shelf this week. So then, as we join this hotly anticipated issue, the main universe Trinity stares down their absolute counterparts. They're younger, they're scrappier, they are infused with Darkseid energy at the very cellular level. But with the fate of the universe hanging in the balance, there's absolutely nothing stopping them from going completely all out. The 2 Superman end up clashing in the field, creating a massive shockwave. Main Superman notes how absolute Superman is filled with all sorts of interesting tricks, like shooting solar energy from his gauntlets and a cape made of red dust particulates like something you would only see back on Krypton. The absolute Batman charges Lex Luthor with all the rage and intensity of a shaved bear, and when a trank from Luthor doesn't even stop him a little bit, the Joker figures, you know what, this isn't fun anymore, I'm not enjoying this, can I join Darkseid's team? I mean, I already kind of killed my Batman when the tournament started, so the rest is all gravy, and who's ever heard of just 3 horsemen of the apocalypse? I'll be whatever, man. It's not like the rules of this tournament matter or anything. And you know what? Darkseid very much agrees. He lets the Joker join his team and even dubs him a brand new breed of parademon. So yeah, Team Earth is officially down a member, and at the worst possible time too. Wonder Woman has her showdown with the absolute Wonder Woman. They show off all the different abilities of their different lassos. And while mainline Diana's can make you tell the truth, absolute Wonder Woman's sacrifice can do all sorts of things, like turning her bony Pegasus into a full-on multi-headed skeletal Hydra. Oh, okay, I get it. I see the truth, and the truth is horrifying. Joker and the absolute Batman end up pulling off one hell of a combo move. Para-Joker steals some kryptonite from Luthor and uses it to lace absolute Batman's helmet, which we know are made of knives, so that he can impale poor Superman with it. This SmackDown once again ends up knocking another memory loose from the wraparound story that we've been dealing with all event long to the game night that the Trinity played at Superman and Lois's. You see, during that game, Clark complained that Bruce was cheating. And indeed he was. In classic Batman fashion, he had figured out all of the different intricacies of the dice early on in the game, meaning that he could pretty much roll whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. He didn't see it as cheating, though. As Bruce says, it's just being Batman. And hey, speaking of being Batman, at that very moment, the Dark Knight himself ends up rejoining the game. As he explains, he had attempted to cheat the Omega Tournament early on by using a mother box inside his suit. Doing so had pissed off the Heart of Apocalypse so much he shunted Batman over to his own little mini-series wherein he had to fight his children as they became twisted versions of Batman just to make it back to the game. But hey, Batman managed to win that game too because, well, he's Batman, that's just kind of what he does, and now he's ready to help the good guys turn the battle back in their favor. Naturally, this of course means we get the final part of the Trinity showdown as mainline Batman dukes it out with absolute Batman, who has some very choice words for his counterpart, saying that he is a little rich boy. Only for our Batman to fire back and say that that is the ugliest bat symbol of any variant Batman that our Batman has ever seen before. And again, how can you not love a joke like that? Snyder's so wonderfully self-referential, not afraid to be self-deprecating. I cannot believe I have actually seen people say that absolute Batman is overly dark and gritty and too edgy or try-hard. No, it's not. It's all incredibly self-aware. Mainline Batman manages to get the upper hand by using some of his gadgets, something that the absolute Batman certainly doesn't have, while Superman follows suit not long after by using one of the most intense versions of his own heat vision ever to try and trap absolute Superman inside of his own red particulates. With the dark absolute Trinity ever so briefly dealt with, Superman is able to turn his full uncut attention to Darkseid in the guise of Booster Gold. Superman socks Darkseid across the jaw with his full force, the kind of uncut punch that that he doesn't normally use for fear of breaking the entire world around him. In this case, though, it does serve to do the trick and break Darkseid's control over the Absolute Trinity, who return to themselves. They're understandably equal parts confused as well as a little embarrassed that they let Darkseid take control of them and let themselves be used as weapons, though the main Trinity say that they can make it up to them right now by fighting by their side. And while at first that might seem to be exactly what the Doctor ordered, in truth, Darkseid is already one step ahead of everybody. All of this fighting, all of this conflict has only served to create more Omega energy that he can siphon off, to finally allow his second coming here in the main DC universe. In fact, he crawls his way out of Booster Gold's mouth in a really gross, really sick little image. Not only is Darkseid back now, but he is seemingly stronger than ever before, unleashing an Omega sanction strong enough to completely glass anyone and everyone in front of him. Superman just barely manages to hang on to his physical form through sheer grit and determination. He's known since the very beginning that he might very well be the only thing to stop Darkseid from completely destroying the past, present, and future. The story has basically been signposting it since the very beginning, but what if Superman wasn't the only one? For you see, there is another. While all of this is going on, Lex Luthor has just kind of slinked his way into the background, and because the tournament is still technically going on, Lex figures the only way to actually defeat Darkseid is to beat him in the tournament proper, but he can't do that unless he's the last one standing, which is exactly what he does. Luthor betrays Superman, meaning that the final round for the Crown of Omega will be Luthor versus Darkseid. Oh, but we're not done yet, because as a little stinger, we actually take a trip to the Dark Legion of Superheroes future, ruled over by the final god, King Omega Darkseid. You see, he'd been planning this whole thing from the very beginning, and as he explains to Saturn Girl, all the pieces kind of fell into place for him, from discovering his place in the greater cosmology, to killing gods, to stealing the absolute energy and building his own Earth, where his evil was law and even the heroes themselves were cellularly Darkseid at the most minuscule level possible, meaning that as far as he was concerned, the Absolute Earth wasn't just a place, but a weapon to be wielded. He dispatched the Dark Legion to go and capture the Trinity so that they could be brainwashed and turned into his horsemen. Hell, as far as the actual Omega tournament itself went, Darkseid and his agents probably could have stepped on in at any moment in history and stopped it from taking place, but he wanted it to happen. All of the fighting only created more Omega energy and hastened his return. He also allows Saturn Girl to peer inside his own mind and see his final design for the past, present, and future, a brand new world where Darkseid is eternal across all things. But here's the rub though, as the comic comes to a close, when Saturn Girl looks inside Darkseid's mind, she also sees Time Trapper Doomsday, the only other creature who could potentially bring down the King Omega. And with that, we come to the brand new Deadpool issue #1, courtesy of Benjamin Percy. As we join the story in progress, we see that a group of heroin traffickers calling themselves the Heartlanders are ready for a brand new shipment. These guys have a hell of a system to keep them under the radar, smuggling bricks of drugs inside cows and then ferrying them over the Canadian border. You know, there's a good mad cow joke in here somewhere, but American-Canadian relations are at an all-time low, so I'm gonna leave this one where it is. Deadpool ends up popping out of one of the heifers and absolutely shooting up the place. He takes a couple big hits himself, including getting shot in the head. Don't worry though, Deadpool has managed to completely recoup the full force of his healing factor after briefly losing it in the last run. The jokes and shtick come fast and furious in this one too, and you may also notice another major thing that has returned to Deadpool is his multiple different text boxes. We have his regular text boxes, his internal monologue, and a third blue box made of quippy running commentary, which, geez, you know what, if the book is gonna do that, then what the hell am I even here making a video on it for? That's like 90% of my own personal shtick. Deadpool makes short work of the Heartlanders' operation, killing their foot soldiers before killing their chemists and blowing up their drug lab. Still, these guys aren't going down without a fight. They decide to chase Wade in one of the farm's crop dusters. This panel here has actually been a big part of marketing for the book, as it is one giant reference to the classic Hitchcock film North by Northwest. Wade makes a pretty good crack too about how breathing in all of these crop duster chemicals could very easily give him cancer, were it, you know, not for the fact that he is already riddled with cancer all the time. So far, you're probably noting that this book isn't exactly anything spectacular in the Deadpool department, but it's what happens next that really ends up making the story take a major turn. You see, Deadpool shoots the the pilot of the crop duster, but instead of just, walking out of the way. He instead willingly and quite happily lets the crop duster crash into him, cutting him into a million different pieces and burning him into little crispy nuggets. It would seem that the Merc with the Mouth has developed one hell of a death wish recently, and considering that his healing factor is so good he is nigh immortal, these two things are hilariously at odds with each other. We also learned that it was Hammerhead, popular Spider-Man villain and New York crime boss, who actually hired Deadpool in the first place to take out the heroin operation. Yes, Wade is also back doing jobs for more nefarious characters, despite in the last run it seemed that he had actually turned a corner on maybe doing more ethical mercenary work. Hammerhead doesn't like Wade, but he certainly pays well, and Deadpool makes every opportunity to try and goad Hammerhead into killing him. Though, as the gangster notes, with your healing factor, what is even the point in shooting you for disrespect? You're just gonna heal anyway. You really take the fun out of everything, don't you, Deadpool? With no more dangerous, potentially fatal missions to be had, Wade has no choice but to return home to Blind Al, where he is currently crashing for the last month. Now, if you're like me, you're probably asking the question, what the hell happened to Deadpool? I thought he was in a good place with his two daughters. He had his own mercenary company. He was working with Taskmaster. Well, no. Yeah, I know they're doing that thing again where they jettison Deadpool's much more comic-centric status quo and replace it with something much closer to the Ryan Reynolds movies. Feels like they've done this like 3 or 4 times before. It's certainly not my favorite. In fact, it was a big factor in me almost not picking this book up this week. But you know what? I'm gonna put my own personal feelings aside and meet the book where it is. For what it's worth, the story does imply that something horrible happened a month ago when unraveling the mystery of what is going to be a major thrust of the book moving forward. Al is very concerned about Wade's well-being, but he doesn't want to hear any of it, and as such takes off. While moping on a building, questioning his own mortality, and maybe even thinking about trying to jump, we do end up getting a small little glimpse of what might have happened to Ellie, Wade's daughter. It seems that she was sucked into a portal, which, is just a nice narrative way of saying we put her on a bus. But hey, Ellie was put on a bus after the Duggan years and actually ended up coming back, so who's to say that she won't get off that bus all over again? Deadpool's self-hating brood session ends up getting interrupted when a mysterious letter ends up falling out of the sky, a letter that reveals to him things that are going to be happening in the not-too-distant future. A car crash, a fat man dancing, as well as an impending terrorist attack perpetrated by clowns that maybe only Deadpool himself can solve. If Wade was looking for a reason to live, then messages from the future are certainly as good a reason as any, though in his mind he does wonder how is he going to screw this up the same way he seems to screw up everything else in his life. And there you have it, everybody. 2 big titles from Marvel and DC done and dusted this week. First up, we had DCKO, which certainly lived up to the hype, in my mind at least, for having the Absolute Trinity do battle against the regular Trinity. I appreciate that it wasn't just fighting from top to bottom, and there actually was a minute there where they got to talk and got to relate, and hopefully we'll end up seeing more of that down the line. Of course, the real MVP of this issue was Batman, and how could he not be? I like that the book isn't afraid to just straight up joke now and be like, yeah, of course Batman is a hack, of course he's a god mod, of course he's the ace up the sleeve for everybody, he's Batman, naturally he's gonna come in and make all the difference, only he didn't really. In the end, I appreciate that this story really did circle back to being about Lex Luthor, who again, if you have been reading the main Joshua Williamson book, had so much growth and so much, hard character work put into him. I like that this story actually ends with him being the one who might be able to make all the difference against Darkseid. It certainly has me invested and interested in the next issue to see where everything is going to go. Overall, though, I think I would probably only give this one a 7.5 out of 10. It's maybe not as explosive as the issues that preceded it, but not particularly bad either. I think it's kind of that weird, awkward penultimate issue where we're going to see where all the work actually went when we get to the real end of end. And then there's Deadpool issue number 1. Like I said, a book that I almost didn't pick up, but I wanted this video to have a nice Marvel DC balance to it. This book is sold as part of the brand new status quo for X-Men following their last big event. I have not been keeping up with any of that, so don't worry, I wasn't lost, which means you're not going to be lost either. Yes, it is disappointing that it seems that they've kind of thrown away all the hard work that Cody Ziegler did in the last run. Deadpool doesn't have his family anymore. He's returned to being a lot closer to the Ryan Reynolds version of the character, which I know some people certainly like more than the version I like, so I'm not going to yuck their yum. Benjamin Percy definitely is a good fit for this material. Of course, he had one of the longest Wolverine Weapon X runs in the modern era, so he's certainly a good fit for this material. It's bloody, there's some good jokes here and there. My problems are, more multimedia and more character direction issues, but I get the strong feeling that this book is definitely going to be for someone, even if it's not particularly for me. Overall, I would give this one a 7 out of 10. Again, pretty good, not great, not sure if I'll come back for issue 2, but we'll see. And with that, everybody, will just about do it for me for another week. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you read some excellent comics this week. And hey, if you enjoyed the video, let's do it again real soon, everybody. Bye-bye.